Grace and peace, everyone. This is Speaking the Truth in Love. I'm Sister April Bassell. It's been a very interesting day. The Lord, during my quiet time with Him, gave me a word that He wanted to release for the upcoming new year. And He wanted me to release it today, before New Year's, so His people could get what He requested together and be on the same page and on one accord. And it's been absolutely amazing when the Lord gives you a word, how much warfare gets kicked up in the space of a day. I mean, it's every kind of obstacle and distraction that could possibly be encountered has been encountered by me this day. That's how you know it's what the Lord wants. The more resistance you get, the more important the word is. So I'm just going to say a quick prayer and jump right into it. Father, Lord, take control. Take control of my spirit, soul, and body, my mind, my feelings, my emotions. Steady me, and let every word that comes forth out of my mouth be all from you. None of it from me, 100% for you. You get the honor, the glory, and that your people are edified exactly the way you want them to. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. In Jesus' name, amen. Oh boy. This is one of those high-stress days where the Lord gives you an assignment and quite literally all hell breaks loose. I mean, obstacle after obstacle, distraction after distraction. I mean, when the Lord really wants you in order to get a word to His people, that's when the demons start manifesting themselves all up in your environment in order to throw your concentration off to the point where you just, I can't even say it right now. The Lord specifically has been ministering to me over the last few weeks. And last night, during some quiet time, He allowed me to encounter a word from an archbishop, I believe, in Ghana, regarding bloodline issues, and how the Lord directed him in order to have all of the men in the church stand up, repent of all of the family sins and iniquities that have taken place through their bloodlines before they were born and during the time that they are living and breathing, and that their descendants, offspring, may have committed against the Lord, to make full confession, repentance of every sin, known or unknown, confessed or unconfessed, deliberate or inadvertent, in order to clear up their bloodlines and be able to move forward. And in the process of that, the Lord gave them an instruction in order to sow a $50 seed. A $50 seed being 50 being the number of Jubilee, a Jubilee release for themselves and for every single member of their families as an offering to the Lord, in order to basically bless their families, giving thanks to God and blessing their families moving forward in order to give them a clean slate, if I understand it right. The Lord allowed me to see that last night. I'm like, Lord, what is it we're missing? What is it we're not doing? What is it that you want from us as a family? And He allowed me to see that. Now, before we go any further, I'm not asking you for anything. Nothing. So don't get it twisted. I don't want any money from anybody. I'm not looking for any contributions of any kind. What the Lord was showing me specifically is that He wants His people to gather a Jubilee seed offering. $50 seed, if you're able, in order to do it per individual family member. $50 seed per family member. If you're only able to do it for a household, I believe God will honor it if you do it for a household. And He wants you to sow it on New Year's Day if you go to watch night. And if you don't go to watch night, to sow it on the first Sunday of the new year. If you're in a church home, sow it in your local church home. If you're not attending church, but there's established ministries online that you feel comfortable with and that you trust, take that $50 seed for each individual member of your family or for your household and sow it into that ministry that God directs you to, specifically. The ones that He trusts, that He'll guide you and direct you to sow it into. If you're not in a local church home, or you're not in a congregation, you're not necessarily attached to any given ministry, then He wants you to take that $50 seed and donate it. Now, where would you be able, in order to donate? He gave me specific areas that He wants folk in order to sow this Jubilee seed into. And there's specific reasons for it. I'll explain in a minute. The first establishment that He mentioned was local hospitals. So if you're not going to go to watch night, you're not connected to any specific church organization or religious institution, but you want to show your gratitude towards the Lord, sow that Jubilee seed, that $50 seed, into your local hospitals. Local hospitals are very understaffed. The workers that are there are overworked. They're tight on resources. And every local hospital has a fundraising branch in its facility in order to help defray certain costs, or in order to help with the bills of people who have outstanding debts. It's too much. It may help to bring down the cost of outstanding bills, or help to bring down the cost of certain supplies or that they spend, in order to keep their facilities running. Donate a $50 seed to your local hospitals in order to help them out. The ones that are in your neighborhood, the ones that you attend, the ones that you use regularly in times of emergency. Sow into them. Instead of just, using it as leisure money that could be, tossed away on a dress that you only wear once, or a fancy pair of high heels that you only wear once and everything. Sow into your communities. So instead of, if you can't go out for New Year's, or you decide in order to beg off because of COVID or something like that, don't just sit on the money or kind of sulk, or, throw it into your local liquor store or stuff like that. Make an investment in your community. Make an investment in your country. Sow into your local hospitals. Another option, if you're not going to sow the $50 seed into a religious institution, sow it into your local schools. Yes, I said local schools. The Department of Education has staff in local schools. They're always in need of school supplies for the kids. The teachers have to make outlays from their own personal pockets in order to cover lack of supplies and everything. How about invest in your local schools this year? Start off the new year right, by making an investment in your community. Sow a $50 seed into your local schools for cleaning supplies, even better, school lunches. Sometimes kids don't eat because they have outstanding school lunch fees. They can't cover it, they can't afford it. Some of them are just barely getting by. Some of the kids, if you live in urban areas, they live in shelters and go back and forth to public schools at the same time, and that lunch is the difference between a meal for that day or no meal at all. Sow into your local schools. Build your community from the ground up. Sow into your fire department. Ooh, now there's a thought. Fire department, really? Yeah. Sow into your local fire department, so they can replace aging equipment like jackets and hats and boots and things like that. These are very special people. They go against their natural born instincts in order to run into hot, fiery places to save other people's lives. They're a gift from God. That's not a specialty thing that you just find in a school. No, that's something that God puts in them. That's His special gift of mercy to people on the earth. Sow into your local fire department. They need it. They need your support. They need your encouragement. They're not our enemies. Forget all the COVID, no COVID vaccine bit. These people in a pinch are willing in order to put out fire for a house that they don't own. Show them a little love and respect. Invest in your fire department. Police department. Now, I know there's issues throughout the country with police departments. People say fund them, defund them. We're going to take a different approach with this. The Spirit is showing me there are ways that you can contribute to your local police department without necessarily enabling or endorsing some questionable behavior. If you're going to make a donation to your local police department, do it to their training programs. Sensitivity training, CPR training. Every police officer across this entire country should know how to provide CPR in a pinch. Some do, some don't. In a time of a crunch, it's the luck of the draw as to who you may get. You may get somebody that knows that, and you may get somebody that doesn't. And it's not his fault if they didn't give him that kind of training, So if you want to sow into your local police department, training, CPR training, and here's something else, American Sign Language. Ooh, didn't see that one coming, did you? Yeah, American Sign Language. There's a whole population throughout this country that's hearing impaired, and they need services from the police department just like everybody else. I think I remember a very tragic story of a few years back where there was a driver who was hearing impaired. He couldn't hear. And he couldn't hear the warning sirens of the police officers telling him to pull over, pull over, pull over. And there was an interaction that didn't end well, and I believe he lost his life. I think if there's a level of training and signaling, and that would include DMV too, special stickers or markers, invest in your local DMV for special stickers and markers for people who have vision or hearing impairments that still have the ability to drive, where at least if there are any traffic violations or they have any encounters with the police, there's a certain protocol put in place on how to deal with them. They have representation there in order to to have a better outcome. These are things that have fallen through the cracks, or just things that in times of crisis get overlooked. And as far as hospitals are concerned, donate for American Sign Language staff in order to deal with patients as they come in. You have interpreters in many hospitals for staff members that speak all different kinds of languages, but you rarely see any of them interact with American Sign Language. That's important. So those are things that should be added to the list. So into your communities in order to improve the quality of life where you live. Food banks. Take the $50 seeds. If you don't want to sow them into religious institutions, sow a $50 seed for yourself and for the members of your family into local food banks. Their shelves are depleted. If you could see in urban areas how many people stand online 2 or 3 different days a week just waiting for food bank trucks in order to come, in order to get just a little bit of produce for their family members to feed their families. And it's not just people who are beneath the poverty line. It's people who have full-time jobs, have 2 and 3 different jobs, and can't afford to buy groceries. If you've been to the grocery store lately, if you don't have sticker shock by now, stick around. Inflation is definitely in place. Food banks. Sow into your local food banks. Start the new year off differently. Instead of just, I don't want to call it revelry. It's kind of like a condescending term. But, do something different. The Lord is giving us a spiritual Jubilee year. Let's do things differently. Let's invest. Let's say thank you and sow into the new year in order to bless our neighbors. Say thank you to Him. Bless our neighbors. Bless our communities. Bless the young and the old, the children, the infirmed, in order to rebuild our communities. This is not me asking for anything. I'm asking you in order to invest in your country, invest in your neighbors, invest in your city, in your state, in your country. Invest the seed in food banks. Sow a seed into your local libraries. Local libraries, yeah, local libraries. Local libraries were the main lifeline of people at or just below or just barely above the median poverty line in order to get computer access, books to read, tutoring after school for kids, and other activities that would be provided in order to give kids safety zones, kids, teens, young adults, seniors, places in order to have safety zones, in order to read, in order to do their homework, to socialize, get computer skills, get help with language skills, job, resume writing. These are things that basically got taken down by COVID. And I know here in the city of New York, it's hit and miss as for the local libraries. None of the ones that are near where I live have been reopened. Some in more affluent or more gentrified areas have been opened, but neighborhoods where people of color are and need it the most, they haven't been opened back up. And that's tragic. It's criminal, and it needs to be addressed. Sow seeds into your local libraries in order to open every branch in your city and state. Social distancing can be worked out. Believe it or not, there was a certain level of social distancing that existed before COVID. It can be done. Sow into your local libraries. What else did the Lord want me to bring up? He wanted me to explain that He gave Israel, the children of Israel, an instruction. It's in the book of Leviticus, chapter 25. You can read the whole thing. It's like 55 verses in there. It's very detailed. But to give you a synopsis of what it says, God gave the children of Israel an instruction that for 6 years, because this was an agrarian society, agrarian and some forms of cattle, that you cultivate and work your land for 6 years. And on the 7th year, you give it a rest. You do nothing with it. Absolutely nothing. And every 7 years, you're supposed to let that land rest. When you come to the 7th of this 7-year span, which is basically 7 times 7 is 49, that 49th year, you're supposed to give that land a special rest. It's called a Shemitah year. It's the last year of a 7-year cycle in the Jewish calendar. And it's supposed, it's kind of a tight squeeze, apparently. It's almost like a dry spell, that Shemitah year. Things are kind of tight, they're kind of rough. But in that 50th year, that Jubilee year, that's God's blessing and restoration year, where if you had any property that had gotten away from you, it was restored back to you. If you had any debts, they were forgiven. If you were a servant or a slave and happened to be working for somebody in that 50th year, that was your year of freedom. You got a clean slate. All debts were completely wiped away, and you were able in order to go back to your families and start all over from scratch. So the word that God gave me was a spiritual jubilee. He wants 2022 to be a year of spiritual jubilee. Currently, we're in the year of 2021, but as far as the Jewish calendar is concerned, it's the year 5782. It's that Shemitah year, that 49th year. But since things happen in the spiritual before they happen in the natural, He's declaring 2022 to be a spiritual jubilee year. He wants His people, in order to bring Him an offering of giving thanksgiving to Him, celebrating the year of release, spiritual release, familial release. He wants it to be a year of restoration of relationships, restoration of things that were taken or lost. However, they were taken out of one's possession. He wants to restore next year. He wants to bless His people next year. He wants to release people. He wants His people to release each other from guilt, obligation. He wants to give complete and total absolution as far as give everybody a divine reset, a clean slate. If for any reason you can't sow a financial seed, He still wants you in order to sow something with the number 50 in it. If you can't sow $50 into any of the things that I mentioned, He wants you to donate and sow in your time. Give rest to somebody else. Donate your time, whether it's 50 hours or 50 days or 50 weeks. Find a way in order to sow that 50 into another life, in order to bring that life rest. The whole purpose of Jubilee is to give the land rest and give the people rest and give people a lifting of the burdens off of their shoulders and a complete divine reset. Shout out to the drug companies. If you want to sow into this grace, donate some of these top of the line name brand drugs that you produce for less than pennies a piece and sell for exorbitantly high prices. Sow them into your local hospitals. Sow a 1-year supply into 10 hospitals in the city or state in which you're located or you're headquartered. For multi-billion-dollar drug companies, and you know who you are, you don't want me to start calling out names and all the rest of that. Invest in the cities where you're headquartered. Pick 10 local hospitals in the city in which you're headquartered and sow a 1-year seed into those local hospitals. For the hospitals, take those donations and sow them into the people who can least afford to pay the amounts that the drug companies require for their medications, so they don't have to bow down and make gods out of them. Do they bow down and worship and pay for one pill and then sacrifice the bread that they need to eat and to live? You do the math. Sow into your local colleges. How do you do that? Forgive student loan debt. Forgive student loan debt. But we're not just saying let them walk away carte blanche. In exchange for forgiveness of the student loan debts, let them serve an apprenticeship. Let them invest an apprenticeship of maybe 3 years. If they're doctors, 3 years in a local hospital. If they're educators, in order to cover their student loan fees, forgive their student loan debts, let them serve an apprenticeship of 3 years in an underprivileged community or a local school district that's tight and limited on supplies and good teachers. Invest in your country on a local level, on a small scale. For sports teams, local sports teams could pick 10 local schools or 10 local hospitals and invest a $50,000 seed in those 10 hospitals or schools every month for 10 months. It comes up to about a $5 million gift, but it's spread out. It's not you just pick one group or one school and you adopt one school and one school gets put on a pedestal and the other ones feel neglected or left out. No, none of that. Spread it around. Spread the blessing around. Spread the gift around. Spread the goodwill around. Give others rest. rest from worry, rest from fear, rest from anxiety as to how they're going to cover certain things that at the time they're incapable of covering financially themselves. This is a different way of thinking outside the box. This is what the Lord has given me. If you have any issues or concerns, take it up with Him. I'm not asking for anything. But for those of you under the sound of my voice that will be at watch night tomorrow, and you're able to do this, take that $50 seed for every member of your household, put it in an envelope, go to watch night, sow it into your local congregation, your local house of worship, as your thank you for the Jubilee year that the Lord is giving you. Let Him bless, keep, and multiply it, and sow back into you in ways that may even surprise you. Let Him break the financial burdens and bonds and chains off of you. Let Him help heal any familial or relational issues that you may be having. Let it be a year of the spiritual divine reset for the entire nation. Let healing go forth. Let forgiveness go forth. Let the old weights come off. And give Him a clean page to write a brand new story for all of you. I know this is a little bit outside the box, but if you have any questions as to the importance of the Jubilee year in God's eyesight, read the book of Leviticus. Take your time with it. It's pretty detailed. Leviticus chapter 25, starting around verse 9, I believe he makes direct reference to the year Jubilee. If you're wondering where this came from, the Spirit dropped a lyric in my heart late last night, and He hasn't let me let go of it. With all the warfare and resistance that came with this word, He wants everybody to get on the same page and make a fresh start for the new year. If you know the song, The Days of Elijah, of course it says, "Behold, He comes, riding on a cloud, shining like the sun at the trumpet call. Lift your voice. It's the year of Jubilee. Out of Zion's hills, salvation comes." The Lord's going to visit His people in 2022. And He wants to work wonders and miracles. And He wants you to give Him a pathway, some room to work, to show you who He wants to be to you. This is an investment, not just in yourselves, but in the future of your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, your communities, and in kingdom work. So, if you have any questions, it sounds a little unorthodox, you don't necessarily feel comfortable about it, take it to the Lord in prayer. Take every single bit of it to the Lord in prayer. I'm not asking you for anything. I'm asking you, in order to follow God's instructions, invest in the areas that He feels have been neglected, where the people at the bottom who really need the most and have been neglected need some rest. Rest from worry, rest from fear, and need some restoration in their lives. This is Speaking the Truth in Love. I'm Sister April Bassell. Stay blessed.